and those kind of departments, seeing the needs of both families, children throughout the community, and the needs that they have. And that is really what's important to me, is that it opened up my eyes that it really starts at a very young age, that if we can catch these people when they're young, that we can really help them moving on into the future. And that was where a lot of working with JJS and DFS and social service and seeing the impact that we can get. And so obviously at the school district, you are right at that place to be able to provide that to the people of the community, and it's where the kids are, and that's really where the important thing is. I volunteered a lot of time at Family Services, Juvenile Justice. I was the Easter Bunny at Child Haven for many years, just to be able to provide them. So it's very important for me that we start with the young, and that we give them a chance to survive and do well in this community.
Thank you so much, Chair. And just President Bustamante, just so that I do stick to the protocol, do you wish me to hold off on other questions for other candidates?
Yes, I will circle back. Is there any other questions for Mr. Scher about his application? Yes. Okay. Okay, thank you, Mr. Scher. Trustee Stevens, do you have questions for other candidates?
I do. I have two questions for Ms. Binder.
You could come forth, Ms. Binder.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi. So on one of the questions, it says, why do you want to serve on the committee? And you said that you wanted to continue the work that you set out to accomplish. I was wondering, when you say the work, what does that mean exactly for you?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Trustee Stevens. So for the trustees that have been around the years that I've been around, I made a pledge to our community that I would be here until my youngest child graduates high school. And he's entering 4th grade this year. So I have 9 years left that I have committed to serving this community. And when I initially was appointed to the Audit Advisory Committee, at that time with the board, they knew I was looking for more transparency. As many people can remember, 4 or 5 years ago, we had a tumultuous relationship with our then superintendent. There was a lot of infighting in our board, and it left a lot to be desired to the community. And so when I initially applied to it, was because I was tracking so much of the money because there was really nowhere to see it. So if people have financial questions in town, they call me because I have a handy dandy spreadsheet. But I also, over those years, learned how to operate Open Book, which is a very valuable resource. And so when I initially committed to that work, I saw the audit committee as a vessel to bring that more financial transparency to the community. And I set out to do that work. Mr. Robinson and I had several discussions about bringing potential changes to the bylaws to enable some of that work. However, the previous board would not, I guess, entertain a conversation about it. And so at that point in time, about 1.5 years ago, when we updated the bylaws, that's why the only thing that we altered was our meeting schedule and nothing else substantive in the bylaws.
Thank you. Please proceed. Go ahead.
My second clarifying question was on, and you started to lean into a little bit, was you asked, or you said in your application that when you first served on the committee, you didn't have educational accounting experience, but now you do. And I was just wondering if you could clarify, to what extent, what did that look like before to now?
Yeah, sure. Thank you again for the question. So, and I do in hindsight realize from my first application to this one, I actually omitted some information that was in my initial application that had my qualifications to actually sit on this committee. So if I may just recap that. So I spent the better part of many years while I was in college working for the Las Vegas, working for the Las Vegas Sands Convention Center. So Thankfully, because of my education, I scored really well on a couple math tests at the end of high school, and Adelson was recruiting us out of the high schools to come and work for him. And so I was one of those lucky individuals. And so in my years working there, I got to oversee the accounts payable, accounts receivable, and then we were also responsible for auditing all of the conventions, which meant everything from vendors to the booths and whatnot. And every convention can be anywhere from $5 to $100 million, depending on the show. So anyway, so then I was in college. I did not major in finance. I majored in law. And so when I got my first degree, I left the Sands and went to work in my first law firm. And through law, you still have to do finance, unfortunately. So that's why most lawyers are really good at geometry.
Thank you. Any other
I'm so sorry, Madam President. I didn't actually answer her question. So the difference now is when I initially came on board, I did not have any educational accounting experience. However, this body provided me the educational accounting experience that I have learned and self-taught over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. So that's why I put in the 3 years on my application.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Stevens, to sticking to questions about the application. Trustee Ramones Barca Strachan, do you have a question for Ms. Binder?
I do. It's actually Trustee Stevens. It's like we are on the same wavelength, but I'm going to do a little bit of a slight. In the application, it talks about serving for 3 years. So it says that you served on 2 committees. So I'm curious, like, what was the time length and was there some kind of correlation between the 2, or can you clarify the 3 years? Is I don't know how much time on each. Are they concurrent?
Okay, so I was appointed by my previous trustee Guzman to serve on the audit or the attendance zone advisory committee. And around that same time that year, I was asked to apply to the audit committee as well. And so it was concurrent.
Thank you. Trustee Barron, do you have a question on the application for Ms. Binder?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Ms. Binder, just looking here over your resume, and I think I knew about it before. You have very extensive community volunteerism, both with our with here with the district and with other NGOs and other organizations throughout the valley. I just what's not to read between the line. How would you characterize your previous experience on this board that you're being considered for? How would you characterize it?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
I'm sorry. Tell us a little bit about your experience having been on that board. Was there anything that you consider to be something that you found really enlightening, or something that you thought really added to that?
To the audit or the other boards I serve on?
No, actually to this board that we're considering before. You were on it before, right? So what is it that you really to it?
Well, I do know at the time that I started serving, we were not getting presentations on ethics point. It took about 8 months over the course of 3 meetings, consistently pushing back against the former CFO why we weren't receiving those presentations. I guess I'm assuming you guys know what ethics point is, but it's a district employees. It's like a little app on their computer where they can report all types of things, whether it's like employee misconduct, financial things. There's I think a slew of about 10 or 11 different topics that employees can utilize that software for to make reports directly to the district and administration. So I did fight really hard to get that, and then we finally got it. At my last meeting, it was very smooth. we finally got to a very cohesive point of receiving those. Obviously in those years, I did have to learn a lot, and I think that everybody was patient with me. I know that Ms. Scott, our internal auditor, spent significant time with me after I self-educated, before I even sat for my first meeting. And I will be very honest and say that that committee is a very quiet committee. And I think everyone pretty much knows I'm not a very quiet person, but I try to be like as best as I can. So I believe I really did bring a parental voice, a community concern, a community view from it. That if I looked at something and thought that it was off or needed questioning, I always did that. My questions were almost always answered. And I like to think because I didn't major in finance and I was a band geek, but I still have personality. So I do like to, yeah, I do like to think, as you guys mostly know, I am full of personality. And so I also brought obviously that to there. But it really is learning, you have to learn about the governmental accounting standards. You have to learn about the timing on those, what those mean to the district. And then as well, so we have our annual independent audit, and that was learning a lot of fun. Historic trustees have admitted on the dais that they don't even read it. And so they do really lean on our committee to go through that and work with, our committee, our chair, internal, external, to review that before it's brought to you for presentation and acceptance.
Thank you. Trustee Biassadi, a question on the application for Ms. Binder.
Thank you, Madam President. To be clear, you mentioned your work in a law firm, but you're not a lawyer, right?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and I can see you mentioned in the next 9 years, you would like to be involved and engaged, and I think you will want to seize every opportunity where you can become involved, but I think we have to be very careful with the candidate and make sure that they're experienced in this particular area. You stated in your application also that you resigned from the AZAC committee due to an impasse with the previous trustee. Can you clarify what circumstance it was that had you made you resign to the committee, and under what circumstance you would resign to this one appointment? I don't see a problem with my question.
So is there, make sure I understand the question, Trustee Biassadi. So is your question about the application, why she transferred from the zoning committee? Is that what the question is?
So I made two previous questions based on her testimony right now. And the last question was in reference to something on her application, which stated that she resigned from the AZAC committee due to an impasse. I want to know what would make you resign from this committee if appointed. And I'd like to know what that impasse was.
Okay, we can, that's a question on your application. So what was the impasse, Ms. Binder?
Sure, and thank you for the question. So as many people know, I ran for trustee district 8. And in my service to this community and the previous board, my previous trustee again was Lisa Guzman. And after years of very dedicated service and doing almost everything that she ever needed or asked of me for my community, throughout the campaign, it was learned that she was supporting me, but actually working for one of my opponents. And so when all of that proof kind of came together, most people know that I am very much about character, morals, and values. And so when you come across somebody who is willing to stab you in the back, you cut your ties and you separate from that person. And so that is exactly what I did. However, in doing that, with Trustee Stevens, who has all of the knowledge of what happened, her and I have forged, I think, an almost impenetrable community relationship. We're both here to work for our community, for District 8. I don't think anyone in this community can doubt that. And Emily and Trustee Stevens and I made an agreement that she wouldn't do that to me. I won't do that to her. She understood what happened and we've moved forward.
Thank you for that. Vice President Zamora, do you have a question on the application for Ms. Binder?
I do not.
Trustee Dominguez, any question?
Yes, Madam President, and thank you for the question, Trustee Biassadi. I have that same in mind. I do want to disclose, I did work with Ms. Finder during the AZAC committee, so I do appreciate the questions and what made you brought you. So I would like to hear, you discussed a little bit about your relationship with Trustee Stevens on why you came back. But you could have gone back to any committee. So why did you want to come back to the audit committee?
Thank you for the question. Actually, so last year when I sent the resignation email to my chair, it was actually quickly rescinded, but Mr. Robinson forgot to tell then President Garcia Morales. And so it was not caught until she had already sent an email out to all of the trustees notifying them of a vacancy. And then President Garcia Morales did call me to apologize for that. But since that process had started, they were going to stay with that.
Thank you so much. Trustee Cavazos, any questions on the application for Ms. Binder?
Yes, I do. And I also want to go on the record here that I feel that we need to be very cautious here, that we're going into some territory that these are supposed to be questions directly related to the interview without going into anything that appears to be a personal attack. So having said that, Ms. Binder, thank you so much for being here today. I know that you are here quite often in different capacities. So I would like to ask you, you do talk about community a lot and why you want to come back. As far as being on the audit committee, you stated that a lot of times some of the trustees, time constrictions, trying to stay up to date with what's going on a huge budget, and that we depend on the audit committee. What do you feel that your extensive experience on the audit committee would most bring to this position that no other candidate could bring at this particular time?
Wow, thank you, Trustee Cavazos. That's a loaded question. So I believe that in my years of service to this community that I have forged amazing interpersonal and professional relationships with our board. I like to believe that there's a level of trust when I'm asked my opinion, that they know I'm going to tell them the truth. I've never beat around the bush. I've never hid anything. And I have never, when any of you have asked me for advice, I have never strayed you in any type of way that was not for the betterment of our community. And as I say here today, and everything that I serve in this great state, I continue to do that.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your answer.
Okay, I don't see any other questions for Ms. Binder. Thank you so much. Trustee Stevens, I'm going to stay on that roll. I know you said you had a question for another candidate.
Is Christopher Holland here?
Mr. Holland, are you on the line?
And I do not.
Okay. Is there any questions, additional questions for Mr. Johnson? Trustee Vice President Zamora, did you have any questions on the application for Mr. Johnson?
President, I just want to take a moment real quick because there is another person on this call that I'm not sure who they are, and I'm not sure if they're having difficulties unmuting.
Can you share the number that you see?
It starts with 909. That's the area code.
909? Okay. I'm looking at Mr. Caruso to see if that is either he is calling the individual.
And I just wanted to take the moment because I know folks were having issues muting and unmuting earlier.
Thank you so much, because that is something that we cannot see.
Madam President, if I could continue with a question I had for Mr. Johnson.
Yes, is Mr. Johnson still on the line?
I am, thank you.
Thank you. Please proceed, Trustee Dominguez.
Thank you. In reviewing your application, you noted that you led several audits for financial investigations for several state agencies. Could you elaborate on that? a little
Sure.
more on that background?
Absolutely, trustee. So I have served on a couple of state commissions and actually federal agencies as well. The state, the Nevada Board of Optometry, the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth, which largely oversaw foster care placement and adoption services in Tennessee. The Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, I was on an audit task force for them. They're part of the Department of Justice. And so I have myself oversaw audits at the state level and the federal level. And also I've done a lot of work in my career taking audit findings, CAFR findings, annual report findings, investigative findings, from audits, from auditors and audit committees, and taking that esoteric language and turning it into something that policymakers can sort of understand and use in their policymaking work. And I think that that's a big part of what this committee does, because obviously we aren't necessarily the ones hiring the auditors or doing the audits, but what we are doing is taking that information and making it so that you as a trustee, Trustee Dominguez, can understand and utilize in your policymaking decisions, so that you can share that with the public, with your constituents, with parents in the district. So I think that background, where I understand the process and then can use my sort of career as a watchdog, as a journalist, as an investigative reporter, as a columnist, to make that language understandable, is the value that I can bring to this committee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson, and I appreciate your volunteer work with Nevada Reading Week, but thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Vice President Zamora. Do you have a question for Mr. Johnson?
I do not.
Trustee Cavazos, do you have a question for Mr. Johnson?
Yes, thank you, President. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Johnson, for being online and being available at the time. Sir, I wanted to basically touch on your very extensive resume and your experience, where you use the term government watchdog numerous times. And I know you touched on this briefly, but I was having trouble getting on the call, sir, so I apologize. What do you see as the biggest difference on your resume where you cite government watchdog as compared to the role that you would play on the audit committee?
Sure. So what I do as a watchdog, as an investigative reporter, working with think tanks and media outlets, is taking things from audits, taking things from budgets, taking things from open records, and exposing those things to the public. So, wasteful spending, corruption, people enriching themselves with public funds. And I should point out, I've managed to force several public officials from both parties out of office. Certainly wasteful spending and corruption doesn't see a party or an ideology. But the big difference here is that's not the role. The role here is to understand what the auditors are finding, what the reports that they come back with show, and then helping you as a trustee to understand what those findings are, perhaps how you can incorporate that into your policymaking. But you are the one who ultimately decides how to use that information. You're the one who can decide whether to amplify those findings or not. So while I'm proud of my background and proud of saving taxpayers' money and exposing corruption and bad actors, that's not the role here. The role here is to help you with your two main constituencies, which are the students and the people who make sure those kids have a great education, and also the taxpayers who fund those services. Make sure that you have the tools that you need to make sure that those two constituencies are taken care of, are respected, taxpayers' money is well used, so that kids can get a great education here in Clark County.
Thank you, sir, very much for your answer. I appreciate it.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Johnson? Seeing none, then, Mr. Caruso, we do have Mr. Holland online, trustee Stevens.
Thank you. Christopher, can you hear me?
Hi, Jack. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Sorry about the technical difficulty.
That is okay. So when I look at your application, I see some extensive background in your oversight and auditing of a very different kind of budget.
Okay.
It looks like you're
Okay.
it's not necessarily educational, which we see in here. Can you kind of elaborate on how I'm trying to think of the right word, how you utilize that experience and transfer it into the auditing that you would be doing here with public education versus gaming?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So typically when it comes to, accounting, it can vary from industry to industry, but does typically tend to stay the same, right? It's the universal language of all businesses, including government and so really it's oversight and also the numbers and really understand, well, between the claim, basic accounting, there's also development, the president this time, or yourself. Even though it seems to be different, so
Thank you. Trustee Satori?
Yeah, thank you. In addition to your job experience, related experience, you mentioned that you had volunteer experience with CCSD, particularly with junior achievement and budget and finance training. Can you elaborate a little bit more on your volunteering there and for the time span, how long you were involved in those initiatives?
absolutely. So, through the nation and Stanford organization, I was volunteer at a few high schools, and I just took them a quick budget presentation going to these high school students, ultimately showing them, a little bit more of the basic financial education that we would think that we'd get from our parents, but not everyone, it's assumed that you get that from your parents, but not everyone has that background. So teaching them about credit scores, how to open a bank account, different for a personal budget. And kind of getting them the tools that, as they step out in the world, some of that assumed knowledge we could be assuming out and hopefully gave them tools that they can improve. And then also elementary schools about career and financial accounting. And then lastly with senior achievement. So those were two very confirmed volunteering opportunities. Senior achievement, it was classroom days where we were in the class, we had an old 8-hour lesson plan, and I third grade was an opportunity to teach them also about cost, revenue versus profit, and kind of, introduce them, when their brains are starting to develop a little bit earlier into some of the financial terms that they can grow from there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Zamora, do you have a question?
I do not.
Trustee Dominguez, do you have a question for Mr. Holland?
I do not.
Trustee Cavazos, do you have a question?
I do not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That ends our discussion. Thank you. We're going to go to public comment, and we do have one person, Ms. Binder.
Okay, you guys did that. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Eber. I'm actually just going to point out that there are two very highly participating community members that came in after you closed comment cards. And maybe just throw it out there to see if they were interested in public comment. Thank you.
That public comment was closed earlier, and so now we are going to actually go through our process to go ahead and make a selection. And so we do have we're going to throw the names of the 4 candidates into our bucket here. And this will determine the order of how we're going to take the votes. And so our first person assigned to number one is Ms. Binder. She will be number one. Second person will be Mr. Scher, will be number two. And then the third person that we will vote, Mr. Johnson. And then that makes Mr. Holland number four. So now I'm going to ask for a motion for those that want to support candidate number one that was selected to be pulled from the hat, Ms. Binder. Trustee Barron.
Yes. Given her extensive volunteerism and integration and advocacy for the community and
Trustee,
make a motion to appoint Ms. Anna Marie Binder.
Yes, and so let me back up for my for my edification. I will make the motion and then I'm just going to ask members to cast their vote. So unless you have, yes, I'm making the motion.
I wanted to go ahead and I was quivering here with the anticipation of trying to submit to a motion, but I'll fit up at this point because you already know how I feel.
Yes, thank you. So those who would like to support Ms. Binder to be one of the applicants, I'm going to ask you to cast your votes. Mr. Okazaki, I see you.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. It is an action item. I would recommend that you just go through the procedures. So go ahead and have a motion in a second before you vote is what I would recommend.
So I have a first from Trustee Barron and I have a second from again. Okay, all those in favor, if you could cast your votes. Trustee Zamora.
Aye.
Trustee Dominguez.
Aye.
Trustee Cavazos.
Yes.
Now help me with the math here. So, so then that's passes 6-1. Next, do I have a motion for Mr. Scher? I'm waiting for the board to clear, but Trustee Esparza Straffigan.
I would like to make a motion to appoint Jeffrey Scher on the
I have a first. Do I have a second? Trustee Barron.
The second.
Okay. Please cast your votes. Trustee Vice President Zamora.
Aye.
Trustee Dominguez.
Nay.
Trustee Cavazos.
Yes.
So that motion passes 5-2. We're gonna have to do math today. So 5-2. Okay, so we have our two candidates. Thank you so much. We have reached the majority votes with Ms. Binder and Mr. Scher. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Johnson and Mr. Holland, for your applications. I hope that there's many other opportunities to serve within CCSD as well for the trustees. Thank you for your application. Thank you to our chair, Mr. Josh Robinson, for his volunteerism to chair the committee. With that, we're going to go ahead and move on to our second item, which is item 3.02, an employment agreement. Chief Financial Officer, I'll turn that over to our superintendent, Ms. Geek.
Thank you, Madam President. For consideration for the board tonight, I'm really excited to bring you we just did all the nominations today. A selection for Justin Dayhoff to serve as our Chief Financial Officer. He went through a rigorous process, first by a committee which was comprised of both internal staff as well as external staff and a CFO within a school district within our state.
And then also had the opportunity to not only be in that interview, but 2 other interviews as well. We conducted a background check and have had fingerprinting. So he is qualified, but in that respect, but not only that, the interview process, being a strong one, he brings core values, which we as the Clark County School District follow, and I've heard many of you say as well, is that we need to make sure that every single dollar that we have within the Clark County School District is allocated to the classrooms to make sure that our students can achieve. And so with that, for your consideration, I am presenting Justin L. Dayhoff to you for as the Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, Superintendent Ebert. Vice President Samar, I'm going to start with you to see if you have any questions.
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Trustee Dominguez, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam President. I do have a question for our superintendent. If she could briefly go through the process of how she selected Mr. Dayhoff.
Thank you, Trustee Zamora. So the first process was the application process vetted through our HR team. From there, we had a committee, as I just noted, with experts, CFOs, both within our community as well as within the state, inclusive of one of our deputies as well. That was the first round. From that round of interviews, we narrowed it down to 3 candidates who all came in to the district offices. For that round, we had myself as well as internal staff again. Went through those questions on qualifications. Currently, serving in a private company as service there, but prior to that, which relates specifically to this job, is service in Maryland, where their budget is $9 billion annually, so twice what our current budget is, and led there as well as working in a large school district such as ours. So phone calls were also made to former supervisors, as well as myself following up on other questions. And our monitor also was included in this process, since we know that we want to lift up the entire team currently that is in business and finance. And then from there, once the decision was made, I asked for a background check, credit score, all those other pieces, which was conducted and came out clean.
Thank you. Do you have another question, Trustee Dominguez?
No, Madam President. Thank you, Superintendent Ebert, for that description.
Thank you. Trustee Cavazos?
I do not have any questions. I just wanted to commend Superintendent Ebert for bringing us such a quality candidate. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Satori?
Yes, thank you as well. On the contract, it says that the agreement will be commenced as soon as possible after board approval. What is his availability on when he can start, and when do we anticipate this going into effect?
Thank you. So he is moving from across the country, has relocating his entire family. He actually came out prior to being offered the position to look at our community, because this is a marriage, these types of jobs, and so has been looking for a residence and is ready once the board makes a determination that we would like to hire Justin.
Thank you. Trustee Esparza again?
I apologize for my delay. I wanted to kind of ask specifically, because it was brought up from our past CFO when he was terminated and received compensation. So is there a change in the contract for the potential, because this is an at-will contract for compensation?
Superintendent Eber, for the record, thank you, trustee Straff again on page, I believe it's on page possibly 4. And I only mention that as you're looking for that, because yes, previous was a 6-month compensation, and we were criticized, but that was a contract that was decided upon. And I think this is essential. We want to establish our financial fiduciary responsibility and obligation, as you mentioned, that we are trying to learn lessons and not repeat those same mistakes. For termination of an at-will employee, there are 4 different areas. Your question is specifically related to, I believe, for without cause. So the Clark County School District making a determination that without cause, we would like to sever our relationship with the employee. And if that transpires, let's letter B. This contract is less as for 1 year, specifically for Justin. If that was within this 1 year, he would be less than 5 years of employment. So it would be 3-month period of compensation. I really applaud your writing the contracts, and I will say as an expectation that that trend should continue. So thank you for that, Superintendent.
Thank you, trustee Barron.
Yes, thank you very much. Actually, the trustee kind of like, I was gonna ask about that, but I got beat to it. I will ask this, Madam SI. So it looks like you cast a really wide net when you went out for our CFO. The one thing that I've learned over the city of North Vegas, and I hope that this gentleman is listening, that you can find more bang for your buck since you're a financial guy in the city of North Las Vegas, where you have easy and ready access to your leaders over there. Plug for my city. But you cast a very wide net on this one. And just reading, he's a band geek. Yes, he was a band guy, a music teacher. These are things that just sing out to my heart. Are there any other positions that are a critical hire out of this? And again, I can think of another band geek that you hired very close to you as well, but I won't mention her because I keep on getting in trouble every time I do. Anyhow, are you going to apply this wide net approach for other critical hires as we go forward? And this critical hire seems like it was very, very effective. He seemed like the kind of person who could step into a number of roles with us here at CCSD.
Thank you, trustee Barone, for the question. Specifically for this job, I would say for all the jobs, including the deputies. The 2 deputies are here locally. As you all know, not only have I worked here locally, but in New York and then national connections as well. And so this was a very wide net, yes. We also have, which just breaks my heart, and I see she's already looking at the ceiling because she knows I'm talking about her. But we have someone who has a well-deserved retirement. We have posted the position for our Student Support Services Division. So that nationally as well, we're looking for someone that really wants to work with our students with disabilities, our nurses, our crisis team, all of that work that Dr. Monica Cortez has led for many years and through the pandemic. And she's getting flushed right now. Yes, she does rock. We also had a resignation for our RC department. So data, our students, data, our schools as well. So those components, so we have that position flying nationally as well. Those are the 2 that I mentioned this evening.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions from the dais. All right, this is an action item. I did not ask if there was public speaker comment cards that have not been submitted for this item. There's nothing on my list. Okay, then I will entertain a motion. Trustee Barron.
Move to approve.
I have a first from trustee Barron, trustee Henry.
I'll second.
Okay, first and a second, please cast your votes. Trustee, Vice President Zamora,
Aye.
Trustee Dominguez,
Aye.
Trustee Cavazos.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes 7-0. The next item is 3.02. I do not see any public comment cards. If you haven't submitted one, please do so now. Okay, seeing none, that item is closed. The employment agreement for it's for 3.03. The Chief Community Engagement Officer, Superintendent Ebert.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I'm excited this evening to present to you Kirsten Sear as the Chief Community Engagement Officer. Kirsten actually has experience within the Clark County School District, successful experience. I had the pleasure of working with her directly many years ago. Most recently, for the last 6 years, she has served as the Public Education Foundation President. So many of you have worked with her, and many of our community members have worked with her for many years. Collaboration, most recently, I personally have worked with her on the book bus. We know that on that project, initially there was 50,000 books that we were looking to distribute in partnership with the Clark County School District. At that time, when I served in another role, over 122,000 books. So she has both partnership experience, communication experience within the Clark County School District. And as I promised all of you, we would hit the ground running. So she is an excellent recommendation for joining the leadership team within the Clark County School District. And I stand ready for any questions you may have there.
Thank you. Any of the trustees here in the dais? Trustee Esparza-Struffagan.
Thank you, Superintendent, for that clarification and giving us kind of the historical context. I've been receiving inquiries regarding the title of the position. So I think you knew that this was going to come up. Knowing that we have already a different individual serving almost with a similar title. So could you clarify the roles and the title? What does that signify, what those job responsibilities and duties will entail?
Thank you, Trustee Esparza-Struffagan. So the first part in her title is the word chief. We have the level of chiefs within the school district. We have the deputies, we have the chiefs, we have associate superintendents, assistant superintendents. Within this portfolio is government relations, as well as community engagement components. And so I made the determination to have it labeled community engagement because of the government relations component. And instead of making it a big, long title, having it be one. I do understand, I did not predict the amount of people that would ask, well, whose job is this and who, so I will own that piece. But the very first thing, and Kirsten and I already have spoken about this, is that she will be going into that department and conducting a SWOT analysis, making sure that the alignment of job duties and tasks. So we may see job titles that are within that portfolio change, and most likely they will, to make sure there's clarity, who's working with government relations, who's working community outreach, who's working in marketing, those pieces within that department. But at this level, it is a chief position, a cabinet level position, serving our entire community.
Thank you for that clarification. And as a follow-up, so would it be inclusive of communications?
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Any other questions from the trustees on the dais? Hey, Vice President Zamora, any questions?
Not really a question. I think I have more of a comment, and it falls a lot with Trustee Esparza-Struffagan. Just a lot of upcoming changes that are going to be coming into place. Are there any thoughts, Superintendent, of, I don't know, like charts, like a chart of departments and what that looks like for us internally, and maybe something more digestible externally, just to give information, to give community some information to kind of make it all make sense?
Yes, trustees Demora, thank you for that question because I was actually having conversation with staff this afternoon about our organizational chart and how people can find staff members within the Clark County School District. So that specific task was actually assigned earlier this afternoon to make sure that when we open up schools that we can find our staff, we know their phone numbers, we know exactly who their reports are. That is something that not quite 2 months old yet, but that I've heard over and over again, that finding some of our staff where they actually sit within the organizational chart has been difficult.
Perfect, thank you. And this was not a planted question.
Thank you. Trustee Dominguez, any questions?
Thank you, Madam President. I just want to acknowledge our superintendent. Thank you for going through this process and doing an interview, and also wanting to make sure we get information out to the community. That we have, CCSD has so many resources that we need to reach out to parents, and so they know where to get help. So I'm really glad we're able to get someone new on the team.
Thank you. Trustee Cavazos?
Yes, President, I just wanted to ask an additional clarification. I believe that Trustee Esparza Stoffer again basically covered the clarification question. So, Superintendent, I just wanted to ask the SWOT analysis. Do we have any kind of a timeline on when we'll be looking at the results of that?
Thank you, Trustee Cavazos. Those types of analysis usually take about 6 to 8 weeks within a department. So I'd imagine that that will be completed no later than 8 weeks after the start date.
Okay, thank you. And just to also clarify, because I apologize, terrible problems with technology. This is like the third time in 7 years I've ever had to call this. So it's a new experience for me. And so I wanted to make sure that I heard correctly that as far as the chief position, the government relations and the communication would be combined.
Both of those departments are within that portfolio, yes, as well as Vegas PBS.
Okay. Oh, as well as Vegas PBS?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, seeing no other questions and not having any public comment, I will entertain a motion on item 3.03. Trustee Henry.
So moved.
Okay, I have a first from Trustee Henry. Trustee Stevens.
I'll second.
I have a first and a second. Please cast your votes. Vice President Zamora.
Aye.
Trustee Dominguez.
Aye.
Trustee Cavazos.
Aye.
Okay, that motion passes 7-0. Congratulations, Superintendent. We're now going to move on to item 3.04. Before I open that item, is there anyone that did not get a chance to complete a public speaker card? Okay, seeing none, I'll close that. No one has signed up. Dr. Cortez, if you would please proceed.
Good evening. Good evening. Take 3. Okay. Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, and Superintendent Ebert. My name is Monica Cortez. I'm the Chief of Health and Student Services Division. I'm here tonight to bring forward notice of intent revisions for 2 regulations to be in alignment with current law and language that is used in our current time. I would like to thank the team for their proactive work and the collaboration in bringing these forward to you. I would like to first bring your attention to item 3.04, Regulation 5151, Physical Examination, Immunization, and Diagnostic Programs. This was adopted in 1963, revised in 1977, most recently last revised in 1981. Examples of the verbiage that has been updated are that parent is reflected as parent guardian, Nevada school law is referred to as pursuant to law, and Clark County Health District is referred to as the Southern Nevada Health District, referenced throughout the document. Those are very minor changes, but were necessary changes to reflect our current times. Madam President, I'll take questions.
Thank you. I'll start with our Vice President Zamora. Do you have any questions on item 3.04, the district regulations 5151?
I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Dominguez.
Thank you, Madam President. I did want to, if you could, extend on how, like parental, I guess, how are parents notified of their rights on this?
Trustee Dominguez, thank you for your question. All regulations are posted on the website. Notice of intent was also posted for communication. It comes before the board tonight. It also is brought back for consent in 2 weeks. Additionally, our information is sent in the back to school reporter, which has a new name. I'm sorry, Todd. Back to school guide. Everything that goes out, all of our communication is generally referenced in that document.
Any additional questions, Trustee Dominguez?
I'm more I guess I'm more focused on the part where like exemptions. How are parents aware of the exemptions available?
That's it.
Yeah,
go ahead,
Dr. In regards to immunizations and the process for that, it is listed under Parent Resource Guide on our website. If our families go to the CCSD website, you are able to then go to the SSD website that has all of our health information. We have all of our clinics that are available, as well as we have a link to the Nevada Department of Ed where all the exemptions are included in there, as well as the process that needs to follow through Nevada law. It is also referred to again in our back to school reporter.
Trustee Dominguez, any other questions?
Thank you, Ms. Cortez.
Trustee Cavazos, any questions?
No, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the trustees here on the dais? Seeing none, then I will go ahead and entertain a motion on item 3.04. Trustee Esparza-Strachan.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to accept the revisions as presented for regulation 5151 on item 3.04.
Thank you. I have a first, trustees Tori.
Yes, I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a first and a second. Please cast your votes. Vice President Zamora.
Aye.
Trustee Dominguez. Trustee Cavazo.
Aye.
Trustee Dominguez. Did I lose her? Is she still on? She's still on. Does she have her hand raised or anything? Trustee Zamora, can you see if her hand is raised or she has a thumbs up or?
Hi, President. I think she was trying to speak and she probably lost connection. But she is unmuted.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call for the vote then. Go ahead and process it. So that passes 6 with 1. I'm going to say abstention. Can I do that?
President, she did put in the chat, Trustee Dominguez put in the chat, aye, so.
Okay, I'm going to take that then as a I vote for Trustee Dominguez, so that passes 7-0. Thank you, Vice President. We're going to go ahead. Mrs. Dr. Cortez, you are also item 3.25. Is there anyone that has not completed a public speaker card for this? Okay, seeing none, that's closed. Go ahead, Dr. Cortez.
Thank you, Madam President. In referring to item 3.05, regulation 5156, automated external defibrillator, otherwise known as AEDs. This is in alignment with the legislature that was just passed. AB 454, the most recent legislative session, to include requirements of all high school students and the site to have a plan. If I can bring your attention to 2B. We referenced this as a minimum requirement for the site. However, we have a robust plan and a protocol that we have implemented since the AED initiative in CCSD. I will read specifically, all schools with high school students, as well as the district locations deemed by the superintendent, will be equipped with a minimum of one AED device that may require additional dice due to the size of the facility. Next, if we can reference your attention to 4A3. This also documented of AED use. The device was deployed and used for a cardiac event. We specified that any documentation of AED device, if a device was deployed in a cardiac event, which is also in alignment with our plan. Lastly, Section 5 has the most significant changes. However, the changes are language clarifying that they must be employees for American Heart Association, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR, AED, and up to date. B is in alignment as well with AB 454 that just passed. Site administrators must complete and submit an annual AED plan for the building, and this consists of AHA, trained personnel, emergency communication. With your permission, I'll turn it back over to the board for questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the trustees here in the dais? Trustee Biasotti?
Thank you, Madam President. What was this decision based on? Are there statistics or is there data showing a need for these devices in all schools? Is there an increase in cardiac arrest? Because I have seen the news, I have seen an increase in those types of reports after the COVID vaccine in our youth. So I'm wondering if this is linked to that.
Trustee Biasotti, thank you for the question. There absolutely has been an increase in the last few years of the need of more cardiac response. We have implemented AEDs for life-saving opportunities for students and staff in the district. So it's been a great saving for us, for our community.
Thank you so much.
Trustee Esparza-Strophigan.
Thank you, Dr. Cortez, for having this be kind of your parting piece of work, which is extensive. We are grateful. My question is, and you may not know this, but was there any funding because the law was passed? And is there any funding that's coming with that new law from? Is it unfunded? Do you know?
Trustee Esparza-Strophigan, to my knowledge, there was no funding that was aligned with this.
So it's an unfunded mandate that we will definitely be expected to provide necessary and life-saving, but it's something that we have to shore up in our budget to ensure that we are providing that for every site.
Correct. And with our superintendent, we've made adjustments to ensure that we have the necessary staff to fulfill the requirements that go along with maintenance and the drills that are required in our plan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Trustee Barron.
Yes, and being familiar with your resume, let me to tell you, I think we're going to really miss you here in the district, but you have things to take care of yourself. Can you please, at Rancho High School, of course, if I recall exactly, we didn't have one AED, we had multiple. Sometimes you can't tell by looking at someone whether they have a heart condition or not, and it don't necessarily have to be some old geezer like me. It could be a finely tuned athlete that you have no idea. If I remember correctly, there was a young woman, one of these top athletes at a school, collapsed because no one knew that she had a heart condition. Could you speak to how the AED machines, well, I guess they're just AEDs, how they're distributed, based upon school size, and so on and so forth, and who might actually have access to it. I know it's a lot, but I think that would really help the public to realize just how much, of course, the district has planned ahead of time for these really unfortunate events.
Trustee Brown, appreciate the information. I will do my best to answer, and please correct anything, Mr. Ogasaki. First, I'm not a medical professional and I'm not giving out any medical advice, but I can address, we do have in our plan a specific footage based on the square footage is how we allocate our AED. So yes, our high schools, we have multiple devices in very common areas that are labeled throughout the school. And that is all outlined in our plan. Part of this is also having a medical provider who not only reviews every AED incident, he also reviews our plan and communicates with us when we have questions to ensure that we're in compliance, because these are under a license and they're prescription. So every AED. We do have, I believe it's 856 AEDs, don't quote me exactly, but it is that rough number. And so, yes, we have multiple devices. Additionally, part of our plan is that we have four drills a year that happen, as well as we have professional learning that must occur with a team of 10. So every site that has an AED that is a district site, we have a team of 10 that is not only CPR AED certified, but they participate in a couple drills, not all four, but they're required to participate in a couple a year.
Yes.
And thank you, Trustee Satori.
All right, thank you. And I will also echo that you'll be so sorely missed, and we wish you a very happy retirement. My question is, well, and I apologize if it's in here and I just can't find it, but I was wondering what the life expectancy of the AED device is and what the responsibility is to fix it.
Great questions. Trustee Satori, I don't have the exact life, but I believe the batteries in the pads are a 2-year cycle. So that is a cost that we do expense for the district. It is also, we have elementary or pediatric pads and adult pads to ensure that we meet the necessary joules that are required, because there are different things that come up. And that is funds that we've been able to utilize ESSER funding, I believe, and then also some of our district general funds that we use to assist. This is a year that we've already budgeted and planned because of the time frame continuing on. The most important part, I think, to be aware of is that all of our AEDs are the same. So that way, if I was to go to a different site, it would be clear awareness of the device and how it's used, and that it's not a challenge to the operator.
Thank you.